We are good engineers. We are half decent product, right? We are really bad at go-to-market.
They said that their plan is to have 100.
All of these companies have massive teams in Pakistan, right? How is it that when they exit, that benefit doesn't come to us? Because we are just too focused on cash flows.
They have identified those 96 companies, and the government is actively helping them.
So creating long-term value is all about equity, and ensuring sustainable growth is also about equity.
Yasser bhai, you said you wanted to work with a Pakistani guy outside of Pakistan who wanted to build the next $1 billion company. But why you are not planning to build a $1 billion company by yourself? Because in terms of IQ, there is nobody on the table who's just because I actually understand AI after watching your podcasts.
Thank you so much. I'll tell you why. The answer is very clear in my head. We are good engineers. We are half decent product, right? We are really bad at go-to-market. So our GTM sucks. So one capability that we have to develop in Pakistan is how do you go to a market, right? Like how do you go to a market and sell a new product? That's our biggest shortcoming. So when you partner with somebody who is in the market where you need to go, right? Like the big bucks paying for an AI product are in the US and in the West. You can't do the go-to-market sitting from here. And that's why you need a partner who's sitting there will help you with the go-to-market and some product. Engineering, we can do really well. And I also agree with you, with Varisab, what you were saying. I think one of Pakistan's advantages, honestly, that I've been selling to our customers throughout, highest available tier 1 talent density, I think, anywhere in the world. It's not that other countries don't have tier 1 talent. It's just that other countries, the competition for tier 1 talent is just much higher than Pakistan. In Pakistan, tier 1 talent wants to go to systems, NetSol, Abacus. And in India, tier 1 talent wants to go to Anthropic, McKinsey, Accenture. So we have that advantage.
And Turkey, the tier 1 talent is going to gaming. And that's why it's 7 billion. The problem is they are not going to the companies because there's an infrastructure of investing into that top tier talent. And that's why they are building a small number of products and they are going much more because there is investment there and everything. And at the end of the day, Turkey is growing. It's a problem of talent. And
I'll just add one thing to what you are saying and what you are saying. When I went to Istanbul 2 weeks ago with the Prime Minister, the Turkish Minister of Interior told us that in Turkey, they currently have 4 tech unicorns. Pakistan has how many? 0 bands, right? Now, but here's the key thing. They said that their plan is to have 100.
Yeah.
So what they're doing about it is they're not just waiting and hoping that companies will become a unicorn. They have identified those 96 companies, and the government is actively helping them with contracts and skills and all that. That gave me the idea that why in Pakistan we are not doing it. Our largest tech company probably is System, they publicly say, $300 million revenue. We should have more. We should have unicorns, and NetSol should be a unicorn. If not from revenue perspective, then from enterprise value perspective, Abacus, all of these companies have perfectly capable. But then what is the government doing to help? Right? That's another question I'd ask, because government all over the world are one of the largest buyers of services and products. We should be prioritizing made in Pakistan. We should be prioritizing giving projects to Pakistani companies. If we can identify not 100, maybe 20 companies in Pakistan that have the potential to become unicorns, then the government can put up a plan around it. But how will we help? How will we take them to events? How will we help them with getting to $1 billion? But I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it, instead of leaving it to chance.
So first, I'll just Fatma, you've got over 5,000 mouths to feed, right? And product companies can pivot quickly, but you've got such a big user base to provide for. How are you sleeping at night?
Very well, actually. Alhamdulillah. No, but it's very interesting. The points that have been raised around the table are very pertinent, but it also goes back to the dynamics and the pivot for larger enterprises is very different from smaller entities, as we all know, the small and medium enterprises, the startups as well. So you're absolutely right with the 40-year history, which has a different legacy, and now we're saying, where are we shifting? It's essentially goes back to how one has institutionalized the process of digital innovation and this thought process of what's next. That's very important. Now, institutionalization and idea generation are two different things. And within the culture, within the organization, one has to build skills, of course, the capacity, the capability. What Yasser, you also mentioned, it's yes, you have tech expertise. We have the tech expertise, but do they have what it takes to talk to potential customers around the world? The US is a totally different ball game, where you talk to people in Africa, on the African continent, you talk to people in the Middle East. They have a different orientation. What are they really looking for? And then you work backwards towards, do we have the skill set and the enabling environment for our resources to actually say, or the clients to say, aha, this is the enterprise or organization I want to work with, which will enable my objectives at the end of the day. So it just goes back to how the culture is designed and how quickly is the organization enabled to pivot. That's where your point of enterprise development, institutionalizing, because maybe we have easier access to capital given our footprint. But that does not mean a guaranteed access to capital when you're building other markets. देखिए, एक element आता है beyond the conversation is the tax. The good news over here is the 0.25 has been extended for a year. But 3 years, sorry, for 3 years. That is also a very big enabling factor for the sustained growth. But it is not the only factor, because you have to have a mindset which is completely different towards sustaining that particular growth. Policy predictability and policy continuity is extremely important. When we talk about investors, if I were to, and we are in terms of our own growth, we are what we have our Abacus Innovation Hub. So we are investing considerably into R&D, and these are not plugins or add-ons. These are actually standalone products. So there's a shift within from SI towards productization, as I mentioned, and we're taking in already two international markets. We've already tested it. We haven't launched it aggressively, but it's a matter of time. But the point is that access to capital, if we talk to investors, and we have done that in the last few years, they're saying, again, exit, and they're also saying continuity, institutionalization as well. Because you can't invest in a product and say there is a constraint on, someone, an investor wanting to sit on your board, or they want equity shareholder. We principally say equity shareholding. We don't go into debt either. And that's a very good model, what you talked about, Saad, as well, because that allows more control and management. But the minute you open it up to, I feel, in public shareholding, it's a different ball game altogether. I'm sure you've experienced that as well. I feel sometimes वो noise आ जाती है. The noise is कि in tech, the speed and the agility that you need is without someone sitting on the board or with and no offense meant to anyone, but saying, because they are trying to catch up, their knowledge at the board level, at the governance level, if someone is not getting that aha moment and saying, oh, that customer, that market is already shifted, and you're still trying to convince you've missed the boat. You have to have, at the leadership level, enabling these engineers, tech resources to pivot whenever they've brought an idea to the table. So perhaps maybe that is also a constraint where we talk about...
I would love for Salim Saab, because he has experience running a tech company which is also public, to talk about how he manages the Because you are absolutely right. Being a public company, you now have to manage market expectations as well. Market has very short-term appreciation for what you have done, and they are very focused on what you're planning to do next, right? So it changes how management presents their results and their forecasts. So I mean, honestly, from my perspective, would love to have more companies go public, because there's definitely value in that. But you bring up really important points on why companies do not in Pakistan go public on tech side. So love Salib Saab's
I think it's a very difficult thing for me. If I ask me, would I go public today? I would say no. Because our market is still not geared to understand how it works.
Yeah.
So you don't get the
The
valuation.
maturity is not
Maturity
there.
is not there.
Yeah.
It's you know I keep watching the share price up and down. I see sometimes just go crazy going up, and then I understand why it's going up, because there's nothing, no news there, and still is going up.
Yeah.
And then it just comes down. So I just not sure that this market still understand how to give a value to a company's ability to generate revenue, EPS क्या है, EBITDA क्या था, you know, future में क्या revenue company project कर रही है, अभी तक नहीं समझ पाए यहाँ पर. So yes, it's good to be public, because then you get more exposure. Definitely you get more exposure, you're more seen, you are visible, but it has its challenges. You have to meet quarter to quarter. Now, today as a CEO, I'm always worried about quarter ending. So sometimes we have to get a deal done because मुझे quarter अपना close करना है. Now that's not good. Because I want to take my time to sign the deal. I'll take longer to sign a new deal because I'll get a better value. But sometimes we take smaller value because quarter मेरा आ गया. So be careful when you talk about going public. It's great you can raise money. You can use that money to grow. Excellent. But once you raise the money, no, it's a quarter to quarter challenge.
I think one good IPO story, unfortunately, from recent times is not an IT story, where it's a great story. And this answers your question as well, the tire company, right? Like $1 billion IPO in less than 5 years. That's amazing. But do you think that IPO could have been $1 billion if it was not a JV between a Chinese company and a Pakistani company? Probably not. So I think we need to think about, not owning all of the equity, but also making equity partners.
No, of course, Yasir bhai, definitely that has to be done. But the initiating has to be done through Pakistan. So then another company come in and join hands. But my another question is that, for example, other than Salim bhai's, that, if your company got exit tomorrow, kal hamara exit hota hai, will you do it public?
I think again, what Faisal is saying is now it should be easier for us to because what am I going to do with an exit, right? Like probably I'll get an injection of incoming funds, right? And then I'd want to set up something bigger. Setting up something bigger requires me to deploy those funds, not just in Pakistan, but all over the world. If I get the guarantee that I can do that, or if I get the confidence that I can do that, absolutely I will make it.
Exactly. That's what PSEB's used to.
मेरे ख्याल में जो एक चीज हमें where we need to sort of मैं बड़े उससे सुन रहा था. So major evaluation you get better in terms of products rather than services, right? Product keep several X ज़्यादा होता. So not to if or historically we've had this debate that Pakistani is a service sector company, we are not into products. But if you look around, there are products. We are a product company selling in Pakistan. So then I went around and said that why are our products companies successful selling locally, and some of them are amazing products, but they can't do it internationally. The products are good enough to go global, but they are unable to. So when I look at it, my learning is that to be able to sell a product, you need 3 kinds of connectivities. You need physical connectivity. So you have to be, your salesperson has to go make a sale. So you have to be physically able to see the client. Second is fiscal connectivity. So the money has to go across borders easily. And the third is digital connectivity. And if I say that a Pakistani company, a mid-sized Pakistani company has to go sell its product in US, can a mid-sized Pakistani company send his salesperson to US? Or Belgium or France or
go to market,
Germany or Kenya or Nigeria
or even Dubai.
Or even Dubai, right? So physical connectivity.
Let's say this is why we have to join hands.
Physical connectivity. We've already discussed it to death. And then comes the digital connectivity. There too we have problems. So how can we tell a company, so if I were a US Fortune 1000 company, and I go to you and say, look, this is a Pakistani product, amazing, does all your business process things, A, B, C, D, and E. The support center is in Pakistan, and with the internet rating of below 100, you cannot use your credit card directly sitting in US to buy that product. And the salesman is difficult to sell. He will only be able to call you, or somebody else who's a representative person is going to get you. How many of them would take that? How many CIOs will take that risk?
But isn't that going back to the business acumen of our, you're absolutely right.
I think
How
these
do
are
you, how do you
genuine
make the
constraints. These are-
business operating model be
So the
optimized?
operating model would be so then you do two things.
Yeah.
If you have the capital, you set up a US company, or you find a reseller, right? Now, to find a reseller is actually, a lot of people have this problem. It's a bit of a rent seeking, and plus we have to fix those deals that are between them. Is it 20% or is it 200%? Now, if we can get that model right, it will work. But then the reseller is again assuming a lot of it. Now, I go put myself in that guy's shoes. Now, the reseller asks the same question because he's legally bound for the delivery of that product to the US. Now, unless that guy is, and we have these models. Now, that guy is actually related. Most of the resellers, if you see of a mid-sized company, they're actually people who don't have their own companies. They're actually people who have brothers or friends or cousins or whatever, because there's a trust factor involved.
Exactly.
So, which actually, then you cannot scale because your business is then limited to your friends or cousins and known enterprises. So, wahan pe, if we can set up institutionalized sort of a reselling model, right, where you partner with others, then I think that is a scalable model, and that is probably what we need to work on.
No, but
for
that's
the past 15
exactly
years.
what is hurting us. That it goes back to what I mentioned earlier as well, institutionalize the approach towards business operating models. The productization and the service SIs is completely different. Now, for example, let's say there is a startup. All of you have had the opportunity, I'm sure, जो NIC में incubation centers, we've been invited as judges as well. जब वो plan आता है सामने, 9 times out of 10, at least in my experience, होता है कि वो कहते हैं कि इतनी total addressable market है. लेकिन एक होता है कि आप service SAM भी करें, फिर उसके बाद SOM भी करें. How much of a capacity do you have? That reading of what the potential is, what is the value proposition, and then how is the business model built is, I feel, also a limiting factor if we go into the operational depth of why companies are not scaling quickly. Yes, obviously building upon what you have said. So I feel even within organizations, when we, for example, when we have a couple of ideas which we want to launch, and our own business leaders, they bring and we say कि अच्छा आपने कह तो दिया कि total addressable market is, let's say, I don't know, $1 trillion. Let's say, for example, AI ka jo hai in the next 4-5 years, it's much more than that as well. Now you scale it back. Do we have the skill set to actually predict not only what the potential will be in 2030 globally, but realistically look at what serviceable market do we have access to? Sitting in Pakistan, if there is a small entity, they don't have access to the Middle East or Gulf states or the US or Europe, how are they going to bring that model to that particular level? So I feel that is an opportunity for PSEB as well as Pasha to do advocacy around how do you build a sustainable business model, because then you consolidate that to that particular growth. The second is the level of professionalism. I feel the level of professionalism, the commitment to service excellence and operational excellence is also where we lose out internationally. Unfortunately, Pakistan in recent times, thoda sa positive image hui hai Pakistan ki at the back of geopolitics, but the other side to it is the trust factor in terms of if you are committing, then consistently, professionally deliver on that commitment. And that is where we need to educate on professional ethics, quite frankly speaking, and understanding what are you giving there's time and value to it as well. So I know these are very obvious statements, but honestly, it goes back into that sustainable model. The lack of professionalism, the quality of skill set that we had has to build for the future, not just look at tier one kind of delivery.
Amir,
That's where we
if you
face
allow
problems.
me, if you allow me, Saeed or Abdullah point, Saeed, look, what you said is we have to come out of this friends and brothers. We have to take business as a business and look for professional partnership, not brother friend. This is where the problem lies. And we have to give. For first few years, you have to give to get. We are not willing to give. That's the problem. It is we want to get more, and this is where are not able to get alliances. You have to give a lot, even 60% of your revenue to sell before you can claim 90% later on in 5 years. This is I know what's happening. और मैं मिलता हूँ स्टार्टअप से, they come to me for mentoring and उनका मुंह खुलाते हैं, मैं कहता हूँ 60% भी reseller को दे दो. But sell, get your product accepted, get adoption. Once you get the adoption, trust me, is money coming in, but money will take time to come in. पहले accept कर लो कि adoption से पहले पैसा नहीं आएगा. Adoption कैसे होगा? You have to give it away. 60-70% भी देना पड़े तो दे दो, 30% पे गुजारा करो, खर्चा चलाओ. That's how you build it. So don't go to your brother, or friend. Find professionals. There are people looking for products. Come on, there are companies looking for opportunities to sell. So we should do that. Second thing, मैं आपसे बात बिल्कुल agree कर रहा हूँ इनसे, commitment and whatever you promise, you have to deliver that. My very first customer, Amir, is Mercedes-Benz Thailand, 1996. They're still my customer. 30 years on, they are my customer. Why? Every day we support them the way we supported 30 years ago. That's how you maintain and create, and keep businesses. It's very easy to sometimes get a customer, which is not easy, of course. But retaining the customer is most difficult because it's how you dealt with them every day, not just last week, but today and tomorrow, they will stay with you. That's where we lack. And I agree with you, train and guide the young ones to, what you promise, you have to deliver. Amir, एक जो बड़ा discussion में आ रहा है वो people management, resource retention. It's a very serious issue. And yes, we have serious challenges in retaining resources. And yes, culturally there are some issues which I don't want to discuss openly, but there are issues how people work with each other. And लेकिन उसमें एक aspect हमारा भी है as a leaders, as the people who are responsible for maintaining. और जो मैंने एक बात सीखी और जो समझ आई है कि if you want loyalty, you have to buy it. बड़ा strongly मैं कहता हूँ loyalty is bought, loyalty is not given freely. And that with that I don't mean just money aspect. It's all about emotional aspect of retention of people. It's very important how emotionally you take care of them each. Why? And mashallah, she has a big team, 5,000. Not easy to still. She has to be aware of the people's needs. क्या हो रहा है उनके नजर रखना है. So आपके पास अच्छी खासी बड़ी team है. Mashallah, I said you maintain team. So keep in mind कि आपको you need to get involved in the issues also. That way, I assure you, they will look after you while you look after them.
But I would argue that Pakistan has an advantage here because we treat people that work at our houses like family and the business, whereas you have the American culture, which is maybe more Jack Welch, cut the bottom 10% and always be looking to grow. So they put money over people side, and maybe we as Pakistanis lose out on the cash because we treat them more like family. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I think it's an interesting point. My personal experience is that at least at Arbisoft, extremely loyal people who had been with us for years, in the end didn't want to pay the 35% tax because, like he's saying, loyalty has a price, right? Like at the end of the day, if you get like a massive opportunity from a remote employer and you don't have to pay taxes and get your money in dollar, at least for me personally, it's not that they were not loyal. It's not that they had bad personalities or anything. They were great people. But I felt like that was a serious impediment to the growth of my company, that some of my best people I was, competing against, no taxes, dollar income, those kinds of things. I don't know if other people have had the same
I
experience.
agree with that. Yeah, that's a big
It's a big
challenge.
conversation.
Yes.
What Yasser is saying are people who actually want to stay in Pakistan.
Exactly.
Right? We are not even talking about people who leave Pakistan to go to US, Europe, or Dubai. These are people who actually want to stay in Pakistan for any number of reasons. Parents are here, family is there.
They're loyal to
want-
Pakistan and they wanted to be contributing for the growth of Pakistan.
For family reasons, they
For
have
family reasons
More
also.
importantly, we are not talking about employees who are low paid. These are this is like senior level employees, right?
And I'm going to plug the equity point here, right? Again, I'm going to give you example of 4 companies. I'm going to name 4 companies. Invisalign, more than $20 billion now. Careem is $3-4 billion exit. Overjet is more than $1 billion company. Motive, multiple $1 billion companies. All of these companies have massive teams in Pakistan, right? How is it that when they exit, that benefit doesn't come to us? Because we are just too focused on cash flows. And we don't insist that, imagine having 20% of Careem for the Pakistani entity. That one cash injection will meet your next year's,
But the thing is,
dollar
Jasper,
income goals.
nobody will give you equity based on before, based on just as a service provider. Until unless Kareem has developed through through a company, and then if that company will start not working on their own IP and they start competing Kareem as a service provider, Kareem would go to any other party and get the best rate.
Not so easy, Saad. Honestly, I'm telling you, the talent that we have.
It is not easy. It is not easy. I understand that. But if I have to choose, then I don't. If I have to choose on A and B, then I probably have better opportunities. I'll go to Serbia. I'll go to Eastern Europe.
It's a mindset problem as well. So all I'm telling you, one of our big customers 10 years ago did a $2 billion exit. Maybe 6 months before the exit, they said, we've been very, very happy with everything that you've done. And, we have a big plan to reward you as our partner. Would you like equity or would you like cash? Right? And I kick myself for saying, oh, we'll take the cash. We don't have the equity mindset.
The thing is, Yasir bhai, you are probably one of the only examples in Pakistan. And that's the outlier example is very different.
Actually, the two things happen. When companies are, when you're developing somebody who's like mid-size or a startup thing, they do offer and they appreciate it, because that means, as Salim bhai was earlier saying, that means you have faith in their product, right? So it's a great selling point. The flip side is, it's not just the cash flow. It's I think there are two mindsets. One is a service delivery mindset and one is an investor mindset. Now, when you're a small company, you're generally a service delivery and you want to remain there. The other is the comfort zone is the other side. And then how you do the valuation, how you say that, if I lose, $10 an hour here, does it translate into 1% of the company or does it translate into 10% of the company? Personally, I think at that stage, jo bhi mil raha hai,
My question is simple.
No, I think just one point. I just wanted to add one point. Have anybody of you guys have been offered equity and have been betrayed? Because the thing is, it is also what Salim bhai said, Mercedes is one of our best clients. Is maybe 80% goes by Salim bhai and 20% comes by Mercedes also, because they trust them also. Mostly what happened in YC companies and everything, if I'm a founder and if I use you as a CTO, or probably I use your team, before my next round, I'll probably negotiate with you and just give you a $2 million check and raise money at a very higher round. So that's happened if you're not into the game and you just start your selling as equity. This is probably.
But isn't that then the risk of doing business? Because you take decisions on your point of betrayal. Any startup which has, let's say, they put a fantastic balance sheet or P&L forecast in front of you and say, okay, you invest in us, 5 years' time will be, I don't know, $1 billion. Let's say they're aiming to be a unicorn. And around the world, surveys also say that it's, I think, a 20% success rate of all startups making it to be successful. So your point taken in terms of there is heartache in terms of betrayal, but it also goes back to, if I look at it from an equity versus cash now perspective, it is a mindset of, are you investing in today or are you investing in the future? Two, hamari thodi si advocacy weak hai in terms of us understanding how the balance sheet is or the P&L is going to move. As an industry, I'm not talking specifically about anyone around this table, but typically when we talk about the first point, how do we scale exports, how do we make that into sustainable growth, it has to be a long-term investment. So where you take a chance right now, maybe drop profits for because you're investing that profitability back into the business, but you're looking at it for the long haul. The second is, I feel कि हमारा concept of due diligence is also weak. हम कहते हैं वो they're bringing in $5 million, let's say, and they're wanting to invest and they want a seat on the board, for example. Very sometimes as an industry, I feel it's a short-term thinking. Have you done the due diligence? Where is the money coming from? Follow the money trail as well. And that's where the betrayal happens. So our own, and Baki to obviously there's a luck.
Great point. I'm not against equity. I think it is the best thing happen. It is the best thing, and problems ho sakti hain. But the idea is that it is not what I'm saying. It is like you see Paul Graham's essay, then he actually tell this to all Y Combinator alumni. He said first of all, choose your co-founder is the probably best thing happened to you, and it only happened by randomness. Like the same way we choose our spouses. I think if you have the right co-founder, this is probably the best blessing you would have. There is no doubt about that. The second thing is, there is very under hidden layers because I also work in a couple of Y Combinator companies. I got some equity in that project, and before the founder got the raise, because I was all blinded, I was there just working, and before just they wanted to go for the next round, and they thought the next round would be $300 million. They say, okay, we'll just give him a small chunk of money. He would be very happy with this equity, and everything was finished. The only thing is, unless you don't have the full view, or you probably have the financial advisory, you probably on the board if you want to do. Otherwise, there's our companies in Pakistan. I would probably tell you after the conversation. There are company in gaming also, very dear friend of you, who has done that, and he get exit at a very lower price, and then they do the IPO, and then they made the
model
main
is
money.
not incorrect.
The model is amazing.
So the learnings from that is
That's the point, right? That's what I'm saying, that we don't know how to play the high risk, high reward.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't know the
Financial
dynamics
model
behind
ठीक
it.
था, हमारी approach शायद ठीक नहीं थी. तो learning इसकी ये है कि next time around try to be on the board. Insist on a board seat that look, I'm going to get equity. I'm going to, instead of 100, we are going to do it at $80 or $50 or $40 or whatever. But I need a seat on the table. I need to see your financial. I need to see your sales numbers. I need to see your, invested chance.
And also just to add to that, is another question which is very interesting is, and it's a simple question. When an investor says, I'll give you $10 million, you have to be prepared to answer, what are you going to do with that? I'm sorry to say, I know it seems very obvious and a common sense, but you have to display it through your own working as an individual कि वो कह रहे क्या करोगे इसके साथ?
फैसल साहब, ये मैं पूछूंगा एक question. You've been 25 years in Silicon Valley. यहाँ से क्या, what's the difference? क्योंकि ये एक तो capital, and then keeping 100% of our equity, is that the mindset of a Pakistani के पैसे, keep the company?
Let me go back to my time at Systems as the chief strategy. So Izaz Saab is the chairman of Systems. He was the founder of Systems back in the day with Said Babar Ali Saab. Izaz Saab keeps telling me that when they started Systems in 1977, Babar Saab told him one thing, that always make sure you give equity to your top employees. That makes them sticky, that makes them invested in the company, they'll give 110% to the company. And that's what he did when Systems went public in 2013, 2014. A lot of people made a lot of money because Systems stock was, they had Systems stock. So one quick question I have around this table is, why don't more Pakistani tech companies give equity to their employees? That's one question I'll put out there. Second, I thought it was a little bit amusing, and I'll come to your question as well. We, in Pakistan Software Export Board, last week put a LinkedIn post, 4.6 billion, amazing, blah, blah, blah. And if I was reading the comments below that by some people, and those are techie professionals, some of the comments were good for the companies, but they don't pay their employees well. Right? I mean, there were multiple comments on the same theme that the Pakistani tech companies, the CEOs are making a lot of money, the CEOs are driving Audis and Mercedes, but the employees are not getting paid as well. I will kind of put it on this table. What do you guys think about that comment? Is it fair, unfair, or right or wrong? Coming back to your question, is it more about culture or how the people are compensated? right? I mean, from a culture perspective, when I moved from US to Pakistan, I joined systems, and people asked me this question multiple times, difference in working style. I thought systems working style was very similar to US. I think all of your companies are operating in a very professional manner. So the meetings are starting on time, the agendas are there, follow-ups are there, all of that. And having said that, when I joined Pakistan Software Export Board in a government role, day and night difference in how things operate, right? I mean, I tell people it's day and night difference. And many things are, you know, from American style to Pakistani public service side. Compensation, again, I'll come back to the same point. I spent so much time in Silicon Valley. Almost all tech companies, and all of you are very exposed to US markets, not like you are sitting in Pakistan all the time. They almost always grow the companies by giving equity to the founders and key employees. And that's the reason when the companies go public, a lot of people, I mean, Facebook, when they went public, the real estate in Silicon Valley is extremely expensive because so many companies exit with such high dollars given to their employees. I mean, in fact, it is so huge that because Facebook was dragging its feet before they went public, so they created the whole concept of a secondary marketplace, right? That even if you're not public, you can still sell your stock to qualified investors. So I think in Pakistan term, and maybe coming back to Yasir's point, when you are as a CEO discussing with the client and they're offering you equity versus cash, people are more cash prone. They think cash is king, equity might just go down. And to your point, my gut feeling is, and I can double check, in Silicon Valley, which is the very strong entrepreneurial culture, 9 out of 10 startups don't make it, right? So only one. And even then, it's a huge market because that one company that goes well covers for 9 that don't, right? So the risk, the tolerance for failure is very high. It has to be high in Pakistan. I think if it's, when we talk about the ecosystem, people don't have tolerance for failure, right? You start your company and it fails, your family will just bury you. That why are you even doing this stuff? You don't know it. So in Silicon Valley, I think, you know, giving equity to your key employees and having a high tolerance for failure is one of the 2 reasons that they are doing so well in terms of tech.
ताकि ये जो कमेंट है ना कि employees are not paid, ये वैलिड पास में आप नहीं है. आप तो इतना कमिटेटिव है,
ये हो नहीं सकता.
you cannot pay less. You have to make sure
in a
you
free
are
market
possibility.
economy आप ये कर ही नहीं सकते.
हाँ,
अगर
वो
सलीम भाई मैं काम दे रहा हूँ, सलीम भाई विल पिक हिम अप.
वो तो इमीडिएट
अगर ये काम कर रहे
हो ही
हैं
नहीं
तो
सकता.
वो
ये
इन
valid
फ्री
ही नहीं है.
मार्केट इकोनॉमी
Yeah.
collusion हो ही नहीं सकता. देयर आर सो मेनी कंपनीज. तो वो मेरे ख्याल में
And it's a
that-
fight for
that's
the
not-
best. It's a fight for
so
the best.
I think
So we'll pick up the best immediately.
I think it just goes back to the talent management
Exactly.
policies that you have within the organization. And honestly, all of this what we're discussing is the culture, the external culture and the ecosystem, because the markets that you're referring to are more mature, whether the capital markets, whether the trust aspect, the level of professionalism. It is happening. I'm not taking away from the level of professionalism, you know, the companies that are run here. There are systems in place, there's policies in place, compliance, risk management, and the governance around it is very solid. But what is the percentage of those companies as compared to the wider number of companies that are now building, whether they're small and medium-sized enterprises, and quite frankly, maybe some large-scale enterprises who are not committing or complying with either governance practices, good centers of excellence, ensuring that there's communication within. So yes, to the point of we are competing as employers with the freelancers, definitely. 2, the working capital is always under pressure because of the fact that we've built, let's say, invested in an individual. Even if you give them stock options, you're investing in terms of how agile, how is that worker working, what is the level of professionalism and ethical compliance of that individual. And then it consolidates back into a team that is working there. At the end of the day, I feel the problem is not we're losing people, you're right, they're staying over here, is do we have the capacity, the capability to build careers or individuals who can replace them? That replaceability index is not moving as yet. At one point, we're saying we are 250 million people, 60% under the age of 30. and we're saying brain drain हो रहा है, people are leaving the country as well, fine, they're leaving, maybe they're going for better opportunities. But the people who are being left behind, are they the same quality? Do they have the same capacity? Do they have the same level of professionalism? And as quite frankly, it's an investment that we as employers are making. Even from good universities, I feel 12 months we have to just invest in making sure that there is an alignment to what we require. That is where the gap is. I must appreciate that skill development mein bahut kaam ho raha hai in terms of the government focus on digi skills as well. But we have to constantly be looking, and this is perhaps a suggestion, that are we actually aligning to the supply and demand equation? If we are, and I go back to the export, because talent and the right talent will enable us to scale. But the demand keeps on changing because our customers are wanting different things. So that alignment, I feel there has to be much more focus on how is that needle moving. So in a nutshell, it's professional ethics, commitment, addressing, honoring the commitments that are made to the employer as well as the customer, because that's where it dovetails, and building a talent base which is professional and mature enough to allow sustainable growth.
Well, what about equity cookie?
So
Equity boutiques, we are already doing that.
a number of people, companies are doing it, but the reason a lot of it is not showing up is we have to look at our laws as well, right? Minority shareholder can create a lot of problems.
Is it?
Right? So that's why a lot of people are averse. They give them the money, they give them profit sharing, but putting them on Form 9 is a different debate, right? Like formal equity holder. That creates significant challenges. And then on top of it, it is very difficult to enforce contracts and laws in this country, right? So that is why a lot of people are averse. They don't mind paying the money. But legally, if you have a minority shareholder in the company, and you're not a public listed company, you're a private listed company, the minority shareholder legally can create serious problem.
So I think we have, despite the risks, gone in totally on people should have equity. We are not a listed company, but we are a public company. So the Form 9 thing is published. We have more than 250 people who are active shareholders. And we've also been good at buying some of that equity back when people need that money, right? Because the biggest problem with equity is not that we don't want to give it, is that people don't value it because they have not seen why equity would benefit them. So one way in which we started showing them that it can benefit them is that we'll buy back, right? Like the company will buy back.
Yes, but it is the same way for the companies कि जब company आपको equity offer करती है और as a founder you are at the start of the company, you say like, I don't need equity. I probably need to fixed cash flows. Same goes for the employees because we give a lot of equity, a lot of equity to our founders. We set up small teams into the whole game district and give a very large chunk of equity. And that is probably one of the reasons why we grow so fast.
You and I are saying the exact same thing. We don't have, as organizations or as individuals, we don't have appreciation for how building an asset is much more important than building income alone, right? That is the mindset change that I'm talking about. And it's a high risk mindset, but high risk, high rewards, right?
और अब एक और भी प्रॉब्लम आ गया है. So for example, अगर आप अपने किसी एम्प्लॉय के साथ मिड लेवल और प्रॉब्ली सीनियर एम्प्लॉय के साथ ESOPs की बात करेंगे ना, then the problem comes again, वही वाली आएगी जहाँ पे वो कहेगा यार मेरी नेट सैलरी क्या है. So nobody right now is talking about the salaries. Everybody was talking about the net salaries. And then ESOPs वो कहेगा यार इस ESOPs की जो है ना value क्या है. And a company also, this is one of the organizational problem and education problem कि अभी एक तो founders को हर level पे खुद भी सीखना है, फिर अपनी जो है core को भी सिखाना है और फिर उसके नीचे भी सिखाना है कि यार ESOP is not something कि जो है वो कंपनी ने आपको बस दे दिया और वो आपको जो है ना बस मतलब एक
देखिए वो it just goes back to the trust element.
Exactly.
Now we've given equity shareholding and हमारे subsidiaries भी हैं. So we have the Abacus flagship name, but we have 4 different subsidiaries registered in different parts of the world as well, 5 now. So उसमें equity shareholding and it's starting. Yes, other than 7-8 people, अभी हमने roll out नहीं किया. it is also, I feel it's a good move. There's no doubt about it. But there is also a level of maturity. I agree with what Yasser is saying, कि long-term viewing honi chahiye, asset versus cash now. Unfortunately, there is a thought process, cash now is what really motivates and ensures retention rather than looking at it from a long-term perspective. So creating long-term value is all about equity. And ensuring sustainable growth is also about equity. There are very few people who would understand that. Yes, you can buy it back, but it's sort of a tough sell sometimes because it could hurt the growth of the organization. I just feel it goes back into, especially in the tech sector, where agility and adaptability is key. I'm not saying other industries don't have that, but right now, agility and adaptability. And we are poised at a point where we can, change the mindset, I think.
So Fatma, the buyback has a very good motivational signal to the people, right? Like when the company is saying, okay, I'm willing to buy this share back from you because I believe.
Yes, how do you value that? How do you buy back? With what value do you buy back?
So I think you can get like an outside.
So I like this concept.
Yeah, you can get someone to calculate the book value, and then you can.
It's a good idea.
Get somebody to decide what multiple of book value.
It's a bonus I'm kari.
But the thing is, until unless you don't have a traditional VC, the values जो है ना वो तो बिल्कुल ऊपर नीचे.
आपको पाकिस्तान में PwC value करके देंगे.
Okay.